The acid rain pattered against the reinforced glass of Sky Diner, etching tiny fractures into its already damaged surface. Outside, the holographic advertisements flickered, their programming corrupted by years of environmental degradation. Some displayed nothing but garbled code, while others flashed between product images and error messages that illuminated the perpetual twilight of Ridgefront Nexus in sickly blues and reds. Cora Jensen wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, her movements mechanical and precise. The diner was nearly empty, just two patrons nursing cups of synthetic coffee in the far booth. They wore corporate insignias on their jackets, marking them as mid-level functionaries in one of the megacorps that dominated the city skyline. Their conversation was hushed, punctuated by nervous glances at their wrist displays. "Order up," called Wayne Beixler from the kitchen. The owner of Sky Diner rarely cooked anymore, but today the regular chef had called in sick, or so he claimed. More likely, he was avoiding the acid storm that had been forecasted. The weather warning systems were rarely wrong these days. Cora collected the plates. Vat-grown protein formed into the approximate shape and texture of a hamburger, with a side of nutrient-enhanced fries. She delivered them to the corporate workers without a word, her face a careful mask of neutrality. They barely acknowledged her presence, continuing their whispered conversation about quarterly projections and departmental cutbacks. The bell above the door chimed, a surprisingly cheerful sound in the somber atmosphere. Cora turned, expecting another corporate drone seeking shelter from the worsening weather. Instead, she froze, her practice-neutral expression slipping for just a moment. A dragon stood in the doorway, not the sleek, genetically engineered security dragons employed by the wealthy, but a battle-worn veteran in a deteriorating exosuit. The armor, once a gleaming testament to military engineering, was now patched with mismatched plates and exposed wiring. Acid burns marked the outer shell, and one mechanical leg joint sparked slightly with each movement. The dragon's scales, visible through gaps in the armor, were a dull bronze, lacking the metallic luster that characterized healthy specimens. His eyes, however, remained sharp and alert, scanning the diner with military precision before settling on the counter where Cora stood. The two corporate workers fell silent, their conversation dying instantly. One of them shifted uncomfortably, hand moving subtly toward an inner pocket. Street lizards, as homeless dragons were derogatorily called, were rare in this part of the city, typically kept out by private security forces and automated defense systems. The dragon limped toward the counter, each step accompanied by the whine of failing servos in his exosuit. He stopped at a respectful distance, his massive frame hunched as if trying to appear smaller and less threatening. "Ma'am," he said, his voice a low rumble filtered through translation circuits. "Would it be possible to have some hot water and perhaps a piece of bread? I find myself without funds today. But tomorrow?" "We don't run a charity here," Wayne Beixler interrupted, emerging from the kitchen. He wiped his hands on a towel, his expression hard. "Pay or leave, lizard." The dragon's eyes dimmed slightly, but he nodded. "I understand. My apologies for the intrusion." He turned to go, his damaged leg dragging slightly. "Wait," Cora said, the word escaping before she could stop herself. Both Wayne and the dragon looked at her with surprise. She rarely spoke during shifts, preferring to remain as invisible as possible while she worked. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her employee meal credit chip. "I get one free meal per shift," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "I haven't used mine today." Wayne's face darkened. "That's for employees, not for street trash." "The policy says it's my meal to do with as I please," Cora replied, her heart pounding but her voice remaining calm. "I'm giving it to him." For a moment, Wayne looked like he might argue further, but then he threw up his hands. "Fine. Whatever. One basic meal. No extras." He stormed back to the kitchen, muttering about bleeding hearts and declining standards. The dragon remained motionless, his reptilian features difficult to read, but his eyes, amber with vertical pupils, studied Cora with newfound interest. "Thank you," he said finally. "This is Unexpected kindness. Cora shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. Have a seat, it'll be ready soon. She gestured to a booth in the corner, away from the corporate workers who were now pointedly ignoring the entire scene, their attention fixed on their meals. The dragon moved carefully to the indicated booth, his bulky frame barely fitting in the human-sized space. His exosuit whirred and clicked as he settled, adjustments being made automatically to accommodate his posture. Cora prepared a large mug of hot water. Dragons preferred their drinks scalding by human standards, and placed it before him. The food will be a few minutes, she said. The dragon wrapped his clawed hands around the mug, the warmth seeming to provide immediate comfort. May I know the name of my benefactor? He asked. Cora Jensen. I am Exxon Traver. The dragon replied with a formal nod that suggested military bearing. Formerly of the 87th Draconian Heavy Infantry, Galactic Alliance Forces. Cora nodded, unsure how to respond. The Galactic War had ended almost 7 years ago, leaving thousands of veterans, human and non-human alike, adrift in a society eager to forget the conflict and its costs. The government's promised support programs had been systematically defunded in the years since, sacrificed to post-war budget constraints and changing political priorities. Wayne slammed a plate onto the service counter. One basic special, now we're even. Cora delivered the plate to Exxon. It contained a simple meal, synthesized protein, carbohydrate paste formed into a bread-like substance, and a small portion of vitamin-supplemented vegetables. Not the diner's best offering, but hot and nutritionally complete. Thank you, Cora Jensen, Exxon said, dignity evident in his posture despite his circumstances. Your kindness will not be forgotten. Cora nodded again and returned to her duties. Conscious of Wayne's disapproving glare, the corporate workers finished their meals, paid with corporate credit chips, and left without leaving a tip. Typical. Exxon ate slowly, methodically, with the discipline of someone accustomed to making limited resources last. When he finished, he carefully stacked his dishes and limped to the door. Before leaving, he turned and gave Cora a formal salute, his clawed hand touching his forehead in the traditional military gesture. Then he was gone, back into the acid rain and gathering darkness. The diner fell silent except for the soft hum of the environmental systems and the occasional ping of acid droplets against the reinforced glass. In my office, now. Wayne's voice cut through the silence like a knife. Cora followed him into the small room behind the kitchen that served as both office and storage space. Wayne closed the door and turned to face her, his expression thunderous. 7 years, he said. 7 years you've worked here, and I've never had a problem with you. Quiet, efficient, on time. But this? He gestured toward the diner. This crosses a line. It was my meal credit, Cora said softly. That's not the point. Wayne slammed his hand on the desk. You can't turn my establishment into a soup kitchen for every down-and-out non-human that wanders in. It's bad for business. Did you see how uncomfortable those Quantech execs were? They're regulars, Cora, regulars with expense accounts. Cora remained silent, knowing nothing she could say would change what was coming. I'm sorry, but I have to let you go. Wayne reached into a drawer and pulled out a small credit chip. This is your final pay, including today. I'll give you a reference if you need one. Like I said, 7 years of good service counts for something. But I can't have employees undermining my authority or changing the atmosphere of my business. Cora accepted the chip without comment. She removed her name tag and apron, placed them on the desk, and walked out. The other waitress on duty, Mira, gave her a sympathetic glance but quickly looked away when Wayne emerged from the office. No one wanted to be next. Outside, the acid rain had intensified. Cora pulled up the hood of her jacket, the weatherproof material providing minimal protection against the caustic droplets. The public transport platform was 2 blocks away, across the commercial plaza where holographic advertisements continued their endless, glitching cycle of promotion and error. As she waited for the transport pod, Cora noticed a small surveillance drone hovering nearby, its camera focused on her. probably security for one of the upscale shops that lined the plaza. Still, something about its persistent attention made her uneasy. She turned away, relieved when the transport finally arrived. The journey to her apartment complex in the outer district took 30 minutes, the pod navigating through the dense urban landscape with automated precision. Cora stared out at the city, watching as the gleaming towers of the central business district gave way to the more modest structures of the residential zones, and finally to the utilitarian blocks of the outer district where those who service the city's needs could afford to live. Her apartment was on the 23rd floor of a 50-story complex. The elevator was working today. A small mercy. Inside her tiny one-room dwelling, a soft, electronic purr greeted her. "Hello, Smokey," she said as the robotic cat wound around her ankles. The companion bot had been her mother's, a comfort during her final illness. Now it was Cora's only roommate, its programming sophisticated enough to provide the illusion of feline affection and company. Cora checked her messages, nothing important, and then sat heavily on her bed. The reality of her situation finally sinking in. Jobs weren't easy to come by. Not for someone with her limited qualifications. She had enough credits saved to last perhaps 2 months if she was careful. After that, she shook her head, dispelling the thought. She would find something. She always did. On her datapad, a notification appeared, a social media alert. Curious. She opened it to find a video clip of herself and the dragon in the diner. Someone, one of the corporate workers, most likely, had recorded the interaction and shared it. The comments were a mix of support and derision. Lizard lover. Finally, someone with decency. This is why humans lost the war. Too soft. Brave girl. More of this needed. Cora closed the application. The last thing she needed was to become a minor net celebrity, especially for something that had cost her her job. She prepared a simple meal from her limited supplies, fed Smokey his maintenance pellets, and tried to sleep. Morning came with a ping from her door. Cora checked the time, 5:47 a.m., too early for normal visitors. She approached the door cautiously, activating the external camera. Exxon Travers stood in the hallway, his massive frame seeming even larger in the confined space. He had removed parts of his damaged exosuit, revealing more of his bronzed scales and the battle scars that crisscrossed his hide. Cora hesitated, then opened the door. "How did you find me?" "Your act of kindness was recorded and shared," Exxon replied. "It was not difficult to locate your residence from there." That explained the surveillance drone. "What do you want?" "To thank you properly," the dragon said, his voice solemn, "and to return something that was lost." He extended a clawed hand, holding what appeared to be a military identification tag, a dog tag from the human armed forces, attached to a chain alongside a similar tag with draconian script. "I don't understand," Cora said, not reaching for the offering. "Yesterday, when I entered your establishment, I was at my lowest point." Exxon explained. "I had sold everything of value, including my military honors, to support my former squadron mates who were worse off than myself. This," he indicated the tags, "was the last thing of value I possessed. And I had decided to sell it as well. Your kindness reminded me of its true worth." Cora looked from the tags to Exxon's face, trying to understand. "These aren't mine." "No," Exxon agreed. "They belonged to a human soldier who saved my life during the Battle of Proxima Ridge. He died ensuring my evacuation. I've carried his tags with mine since that day." Cora slowly took the offered tags, feeling the weight of the metal in her palm. "I still don't understand why you're giving them to me." "Because you showed the same courage he did," Exxon said simply. "Different battlefield, same heart." Before Cora could respond, the building's emergency alert system activated. "Attention residents. Large gathering detected on ground level. Security protocols engaged. Please remain in your dwellings until further notice." Exxon's eyes narrowed. They arrived more quickly than anticipated. "Who arrived?" Cora moved to her window, looking down at the street below. What she saw made her gasp. Stretching out from the base of her building, forming a line that extended for blocks, were soldiers. Not active military, their uniforms were too varied for that, but veterans, humans, dragons, and other non-human species that had fought in the Galactic Alliance forces. Some wore parts of their old uniforms, others civilian clothes with military insignia. Many showed visible signs of injury, prosthetic limbs, scarred faces, support exoframes. "What is this?" she whispered. "Your act of kindness was witnessed by more than just those in the diner," Exxon said, moving to stand beside her at the window. "The recording spread through veteran networks overnight. Many recognized me. They know what it means for a draconian heavy infantry soldier to be reduced to begging for sustenance." He gestured toward the gathering crowd. "These are my brothers and sisters in arms, human, draconian, and others who fought together against the hegemony. They have come to honor you and to remind this city of the promises made and broken." Cora stared at the assembled veterans, their numbers still growing as more arrived. "I just gave you a meal." "You gave me dignity," Exxon corrected. "In a world that had stripped it away, that is worth more than you know." A new alert sounded on Cora's datapad. A direct communication request from a military frequency. With shaking hands, she accepted it. A dragon's face appeared on the screen, younger than Exxon but with the same bronze scales. He wore a formal military uniform with commander's insignia. "Cora Jensen?" the dragon asked, his voice carrying the same translation harmonics as Exxon's but with a crisper, more authoritative tone. "Yes," she managed to reply. "Commander Matan Traver, Draconian Defense Force, retired. I believe you've met my father." The young dragon's eyes shifted to Exxon. "Father." "Son," Exxon acknowledged with a formal nod. "Your timing is impeccable, as always. When I received your message, I activated the old network immediately." Matan said, 20,000 veterans have responded so far. More are coming." Cora looked from the screen to Exxon in disbelief. 20,000? For what purpose?" "Justice," Matan replied from the screen. "And recognition. My father was not just any soldier, Ms. Jensen. He was Colonel Exxon Traver, commander of the 87th Draconian Heavy Infantry, holder of the Galactic Star, the Alliance Cross, and 17 other commendations. His strategy saved millions of lives during the war. And yesterday, he was forced to beg for food." Exxon shifted uncomfortably. "The war is over, Matan. Ranks and medals mean nothing now." "They mean everything," Matan countered. "Especially to those who served under you. The veterans gathering below, many of them are alive today because of your leadership. When they learned how you were treated, how society has abandoned you and others like you." He trailed off, his reptilian features hardening. Well, they had something to say about it. Another alert sounded, the building's security system registering multiple breaches. Moments later, a knock at Cora's door. She opened it to find 4 veterans, 2 humans, a dragon, and a Scythian with its characteristic translucent skin, standing at attention in the hallway. "Min Jensen," one of the humans said, "your presence is requested downstairs. An escort has been arranged for your safety." Cora looked back at Exxon, who nodded encouragingly. "You have nothing to fear," he assured her. The journey down to the ground floor was surreal. The elevator, usually crowded with residents heading to work, now contained only Cora and her honor guard. Other residents peered out from partially open doors as she passed, curiosity and confusion evident on their faces. Outside, the gathering had grown even larger. Veterans stood in ordered formations, military discipline evident in their straight lines and squared shoulders despite their civilian status and, in many cases, significant physical disabilities. They created a corridor leading from the apartment building's entrance to a small raised platform that had been assembled in the center of the street. As Cora emerged, a signal was given, and every veteran present, human and non-human alike, snapped to attention. The sound of 20,000 beings coming to attention simultaneously was like a thunderclap in the morning air. On the platform stood Matan Traver, his formal military uniform gleaming in the early light. Beside him, looking distinctly uncomfortable, was Wayne Beixler. Matan gestured for Cora to join them on the platform. As she walked through the corridor of veterans, many saluted her. The same formal gesture Exxon had given her in the diner. Exxon himself followed a few paces behind, his bearing now that of a commanding officer despite his damaged exosuit and evident poverty. When Cora reached the platform, Matan addressed the assembled veterans, his voice amplified to reach even those at the back of the massive gathering. 7 years ago, the Galactic Alliance defeated the hegemony after 12 years of brutal warfare. We were promised care, respect, and reintegration. Many of those promises remain unfulfilled. His gaze swept over the crowd. But today, we gather not in protest, but in recognition. Yesterday, a simple act of kindness reminded us why we fought to create a society where dignity is not a luxury, but a right. He turned to Wayne Beixler, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Mr. Beixler, I believe you have something to say to Ms. Jensen. Wayne cleared his throat, his usual confidence nowhere to be seen. I wish to publicly apologize to Cora Jensen for my actions yesterday. Her employment at Sky Diner is reinstated with an increase in salary and benefits, effective immediately. Matan nodded, then addressed Cora directly. Ms. Jensen, your simple act of kindness to my father has resonated throughout the veteran community. In recognition, we wish to present you with this. From an inner pocket, he produced a medal, the Galactic Star, the highest military honor of the Alliance. This belonged to my father, Matan explained. He sold it 3 years ago to pay for medical treatment for 5 of his former soldiers. Today, we return it, not to him, but to you, as a symbol of the honor you've shown when society would not. Cora stared at the medal, its polished surface catching the morning light. I can't accept this, she whispered. I just gave him a meal. You gave him his dignity, Matan corrected, echoing his father's words. And in doing so, you reminded all of us of what we fought for. He placed the medal in her hands, closing her fingers around it. Accept it, not for yourself, but for all those who need to be reminded that kindness still exists in this world. A cheer erupted from the assembled veterans, a sound so powerful it seemed to shake the very foundations of the buildings around them. Wayne Beixler flinched at the noise, his face pale. As the cheering subsided, Exxon stepped forward, standing tall despite his damaged exosuit. Daughter of Jensen, he addressed Cora formally. Will you accept the protection and friendship of the 87th Draconian Heavy Infantry and all allied units present today? The question was clearly ritualistic, part of some military tradition Cora didn't understand. But the sincerity in Exxon's amber eyes was unmistakable. I would be honored, she replied, instinctively knowing that this was the correct response. Another cheer rose from the crowd, even louder than before. Matan turned to Wayne Beixler, his expression hardening. Mr. Beixler, as the proprietor of Sky Diner, you have an opportunity to correct a grave injustice. Your establishment will become a place where veterans, regardless of species or financial status, can find a meal and respect. The cost will be covered by a fund we are establishing today. Wayne nodded rapidly, clearly understanding that refusal was not an option. Of course, Commander. Sky Diner welcomes all veterans. Good, Matan said, because 20,000 of them would like breakfast. Now, Wayne's face drained of all color as he looked out at the massive gathering. My establishment can't possibly. Arrangements have been made with all restaurants and food vendors in a 10-block radius. Matan informed him with a hint of amusement. But you, Mr. Beixler, will personally serve my father and Miss Jensen at your finest table every day for the next month. Consider it a lesson in customer service. The veterans began to disperse, moving in orderly groups toward the various food establishments in the area. their combined presence effectively shutting down regular business throughout the district. Wayne was escorted back to his diner by 4 large draconian veterans, his protests falling on deaf ears. Cora remained on the platform with Exxon and Matan, still trying to process everything that had happened. "This is overwhelming," she admitted. "The response of a united veteran community can be quite impressive." Matan agreed. "But this is only the beginning. Your act of kindness has catalyzed something long overdue, a renewed commitment to care for those who sacrificed for the Alliance." "I never intended." "The greatest changes often come from the smallest acts." Exxon interrupted gently. "Do not diminish what you have done, Cora Jensen." A small surveillance drone hovered nearby, capturing everything. Similar drones were positioned throughout the area, broadcasting the event to networks across the city and beyond. Already, Cora's datapad was being inundated with messages, interview requests, support notes, even job offers. "What happens now?" she asked, looking from father to son. "Now," Matan said, "we remind the world of its obligations, not through violence or threats, but through unity and visibility. 20,000 veterans cannot be ignored, especially when they're backed by active military sympathizers." He straightened his already perfect uniform. "I may be retired, but I still have friends in high places." Exxon placed a clawed hand on Cora's shoulder. "And you, Cora Jensen, will be the face of this movement, if you choose to be the human who remembered our humanity when others forgot." Cora looked down at the medal in her hand, then out at the veterans dispersing through the city streets. Their presence was transforming the normally indifferent urban landscape, bringing a sense of purpose and community that had been absent for too long. "I'm just a waitress," she said quietly. "You are what you choose to be," Exxon replied, "as are we all." The changes began immediately. Sky Diner closed for renovations the day after the veteran gathering, reopening a week later with new accessibility features and an expanded menu that catered to various species' dietary needs. Wayne Beaksler remained the owner, but his attitude underwent a remarkable transformation, especially when in the presence of draconian veterans, who made a point of visiting regularly. Cora declined the offer to return to her old job. Instead, she accepted a position managing a new community kitchen established by a coalition of veteran organizations, located in a repurposed warehouse in the outer district. It provided meals, companionship, and resources to veterans of all species. The pay was modest, but the work was fulfilling in a way she had never experienced before. Exxon Traver became a regular presence at the community kitchen, his military experience and natural authority helping to organize the often chaotic space. His exosuit was repaired by volunteer engineers, allowing him to move with his old confidence and dignity. He never spoke of his time as a street lizard, but his compassion for others in similar situations was evident in every interaction. Matan visited less frequently, his duties with the Draconian Diplomatic Corps keeping him occupied. But when he did appear, he brought resources and political connections that helped expand the community kitchen's reach and influence. The recording of Cora's simple act of kindness continued to circulate, inspiring similar initiatives in other cities. Veteran advocacy groups reported unprecedented support and engagement. Politicians, sensing a shift in public sentiment, began to revisit long-abandoned support programs and policies. And Cora, who had spent years trying to remain invisible, found herself at the center of a movement she had never intended to create. Journalists sought her out for interviews. Community leaders asked for her endorsement. Politicians requested her presence at policy announcements. Through it all, she maintained the same quiet dignity that had characterized her response to Exxon's initial request. She deflected praise, emphasized the contributions of others, and continually redirected attention to the needs of veterans rather than her own role in highlighting them. 6 months after the gathering of 20,000 veterans, Cora stood in her tiny office at the community kitchen, now serving over 500 meals daily to veterans and other marginalized residents of Ridgefront Nexus. The space was spartanly furnished, a desk, 2 chairs, and a few shelves. But on the wall hung 3 items: the Galactic Alliance flag, the Galactic Star Medal, and a frame containing 2 military identification tags, one human, one draconian. A knock at the door interrupted her review of the day's supply deliveries. "Come in," she called. Exxon entered, ducking his head slightly to clear the door frame. "The new shipment of protein supplements has arrived," he reported. "Quality is better than the last batch." "Good," Cora nodded. "Any word from the Northern District outreach team?" "They've established a distribution point at the old transit station, serving approximately 75 veterans daily, mixed species." Exxon's amber eyes studied her with concern. "You look tired, Cora Jensen." She smiled faintly. "Just busy. There's always more to do." "Indeed." The dragon hesitated, then added, "Matan will be visiting tomorrow. He brings news from the capital. The Veterans Restoration Act has passed its first legislative hurdle." Cora's smile widened. "That's excellent news. Please tell him I look forward to hearing the details." Exxon nodded and turned to go, then paused. "My son asked me recently why you continue to live in your small apartment when resources are available for better accommodations." "Did he?" Cora returned her attention to the supply lists. "And what did you tell him?" "That some warriors carry their battlefields with them and find comfort in familiar terrain." Cora looked up, meeting the dragon's gaze. After a moment, she nodded. "Your son is fortunate to have such a wise father." Exxon's scales rippled in the draconian equivalent of a smile. "And I am fortunate to have encountered such a wise human. The kitchen needs your attention. The Scythian delegation has arrived early and is requesting specialized hydration supplements." After he left, Cora moved to the window that overlooked the main dining area. Below, veterans of multiple species shared meals and conversation, their differences in biology and background superseded by their shared experiences and current camaraderie. In one corner, a group of human children, part of a school program to connect with veteran mentors, listened wide-eyed as a Scythian veteran demonstrated how its translucent skin could change colors to match its emotional state. Outside, the acid rain continued to fall on Ridgefront Nexus, etching away at the city's infrastructure just as time and neglect had eroded society's commitment to its defenders. But within these walls, something new was growing. A community built on recognition, respect, and the simple acknowledgement of shared dignity. Cora touched the military tags hanging on the wall, feeling the engraved names beneath her fingertips. One human soldier she had never met, one draconian colonel who had changed her life, different battlefields, same heart. She turned back to her work. One more meal to prepare. One more veteran to serve. One more small act of kindness to offer in a world that desperately needed reminding of its value. The rain continued to fall, but it no longer seemed quite so caustic.